Long before the first clock was ever built, time was measured in beams of sunlight and the slow turn of the stars. Ancient civilizations achieved a level of astronomical precision that still baffles modern scientists, using nothing more than stone, shadow, and patient observation. By the end of this journey, you will understand the hidden genius encoded in monuments like Stonehenge and Chichen Itza, revealing how our ancestors mastered the cosmos. How did they track a year with such accuracy using only the horizon? What secret knowledge was passed down through generations without a single written manual? This story challenges everything we assume about early human ingenuity. What does our modern relationship with time make us forget about the sky? To them, the night was not an empty void but a vast, luminous map. Every star held its place in a grand, rotating sphere, a celestial clockwork turning with a rhythm so reliable it could set the seasons. The sun and moon were not just sources of light, they were the primary hands on this cosmic clock, their journeys across the sky dictating the flow of days, months, and years. Even the planets, those wandering points of light, were seen as messengers or guards moving through the fixed constellations. This was the foundational truth for every ancient sky watcher, from the plains of Mesopotamia to the deserts of Egypt. Their entire concept of time was woven directly from these celestial motions. The critical challenge, then, was not just observing these cycles, but pinpointing their most significant moments with absolute precision. They learned to watch for the sun's slow migration along the horizon. They noted where it rose day after day, creeping northward in the spring and summer, then retreating southward in the fall and winter. The two extremes of this journey became the solstices, the longest and shortest days of the year. Midway between these points lay the equinoxes, when day and night briefly achieved perfect balance. Identifying these 4 anchor points in the solar year was perhaps the most important astronomical discovery in human history. It meant that the abstract, flowing concept of a year could be divided, predicted, and planned for. A community now knew precisely when to plant, when to harvest, when to expect the rains or the river's flood. This knowledge was power, stability, and survival. But marking these moments required more than memory. It demanded a physical, unmoving witness on the earth that could catch the sun at its most extreme positions. This need to literally trap a sliver of sunlight or frame a rising star at a specific day is what drove cultures across the globe to begin aligning massive stones, carving precise sightlines, and building the world's first observatories. The sky gave them the blueprint, and they began to build their answers in stone. The deepest chamber of Newgrange in Ireland lies in total darkness for 364 days of the year. But on the morning of the winter solstice, a narrow beam of sunlight enters through a perfectly aligned roof box, traveling 60 feet down a stone passage to flood the inner tomb with a golden light that lasts for precisely 17 minutes. This was not an accident of architecture. It was a deliberate, breathtaking feat of solar engineering, a moment frozen in stone to mark the sun's annual rebirth. Solar alignment stands as the first and most universal principle of ancient timekeeping. Our ancestors understood that the sun was not simply moving overhead. It was traveling a precise, predictable path along the horizon. From their fixed vantage point on the ground, they watched its rising and setting points shift northward and southward with the seasons, like a pendulum swinging in slow motion. The entire rhythm of the year was written in that creeping dance of light. To capture these critical moments, they built monuments that acted as giant, permanent sighting tools. The goal was to mark the solstices, the 2 days when the sun reaches its farthest northern and southern limits before seeming to stand still, which is what solstice literally means. On the summer solstice, the sun rises at its most northeasterly point, bringing the longest day. On the winter solstice, it rises at its most southeasterly, bringing the longest night. Midway between these extremes are the equinoxes, when the sun rises due east and sets due west, granting equal light and dark. Aligning a massive structure to frame the solstice sunrise required astonishing precision. Archaeologists note that at a place like Machu Picchu, the Intihuatana stone is positioned so perfectly that on the equinoxes, the sun stands directly above it, casting no shadow at all. This phenomenon, called a solar zenith passage, was a powerful symbol of cosmic balance. But how did they achieve such accuracy without modern tools? They used the landscape itself, a distant notch between two mountains, a lone tree on a ridge, or a specially placed standing stone could serve as a horizon marker. By observing the sun's rising point against this natural or human-made backdrop over many years, they could identify and then memorialize the exact day of the solstice. This knowledge was the bedrock of society. It told farmers exactly when to plant their crops as the days grew longer and warmer, and when to harvest as the light began to wane. It dictated the timing of sacred festivals, of offerings to the gods to ensure the sun's return from the depths of winter. Tracking the sun was a profound fusion of science and spirit, a practical necessity for survival that was woven into the very fabric of their cosmology. The sun's path gave them the year, but to divide it further, to track the shorter cycles, they needed to look to a different, more complex light in the night sky. The moon offered a different kind of time, measured in silver light and deepening shadow. While the sun marked the steady march of the seasons, the moon's phases provided a shorter, more intimate rhythm, a celestial pulse that divided the year into manageable months. Its cycle from new moon to full and back again takes roughly 29.5 days, a period so visibly obvious it became humanity's first natural calendar. Communities organized their sacred ceremonies, their market days, and their stories around this luminous cycle. A full moon rising over an ancient temple plaza would have been a signal, casting long, dramatic shadows that guided priests in their rituals and united the community under a shared, ethereal light. But tracking the moon presented a far more intricate puzzle than tracking the sun. Unlike our star, which swings predictably between two solstice points, the moon's movements are a complex dance. The points on the horizon where it rises and sets shift dramatically over a much longer, more subtle cycle. Imagine watching the moon rise each month for years, patiently noting its position. You would see it gradually travel farther north and south along the horizon, reaching extreme points that only repeat once every 18.6 years. These moments are called the lunar standstills, and identifying them represents one of the most astonishing achievements of ancient astronomy. It required a tradition of observation spanning generations, a sacred duty to pass precise knowledge from elder to child over a lifetime, all to complete a single data point. Evidence of this profound patience is etched in stone. At the Noath tomb in Ireland, part of the same ancient complex as Newgrange, archaeologists found massive curbstones covered in intricate, swirling carvings. Many researchers believe these are not merely decoration, but symbolic maps of the lunar cycle, a permanent stone record of the moon's long journey. To commit to such a project, to design a monument that would only reveal its full purpose to your great-grandchildren, speaks to a world where time was not a personal commodity but a collective legacy. What does it mean to plant a truth you will never see flower? This deep, intergenerational commitment to celestial patterns inevitably led their gaze beyond the moon, to the mysterious wanderers that moved against the fixed backdrop of stars. Above the shifting paths of the sun and moon, a more constant clockwork turned. On a perfectly clear night, far from any modern light, the sky reveals its true nature as a vast, glittering dial. The Milky Way arcs overhead like a luminous river, and the stars, fixed in their ancient constellations, rotate with a predictable nightly rhythm. This was the third and most stable layer of the ancient timekeeping system, the stellar calendar. While solar and lunar alignments marked the year and the month, the fixed stars provided an unchanging backdrop against which all other movements could be measured. Their return to the same position in the sky at the same time each night offered a reassurance of cosmic order, a promise that the great cycle would continue. Our ancestors learned to read specific stars as celestial heralds, their appearance signaling critical events on Earth. In ancient Egypt, the star Sirius, the brightest in the night sky, disappeared for about 70 days each year. Its first reappearance just before dawn, an event called the Heliacal Rising, was a moment of profound importance. It coincided almost perfectly with the annual flooding of the Nile River, the lifeblood of their civilization. When the priests saw Sirius glittering low in the pre-dawn sky, they knew the waters would soon rise, bringing fertile silt to the fields. This celestial signal was so reliable it dictated their entire calendar, marking the new year and the season of renewal. The star was not just an indicator, it was deified as the goddess Soptit, a divine messenger. This practice of linking a star's heliacal rising to a terrestrial event was a global phenomenon. Across the Pacific, Polynesian navigators used the rising of the Pleiades star cluster to mark the start of the oceanic voyaging season, its position guiding them across thousands of miles of open water. In the Americas, the Pawnee people oriented their lodges to watch for the morning star, weaving its cycles into their creation stories. The knowledge was not kept in books but in stories, songs, and stone. One of the most compelling artifacts of this star lore is the Nebra sky disk, found in Germany and dating back over 3,600 years. This bronze disk, inlaid with gold symbols, is considered the oldest known portable depiction of the cosmos. It shows a cluster of stars interpreted as the Pleiades, a crescent moon, and a full sun or moon, all arranged in a way that many researchers believe helped its users reconcile the lunar and solar years. It is a snapshot of the Bronze Age mind attempting to harmonize the different cycles of the sky into a single, usable tool. Anthropologists note that this stellar knowledge was deeply woven into mythology, where constellations became heroes, animals, and gods, their stories explaining not just the patterns in the sky but the moral and practical order of the world on the ground. The stars provided a framework that was both scientific and sacred, a constant in a changing world. They offered a precision that the wandering planets and shifting lunar nodes could not, a fixed grid upon which the entire drama of the cosmos played out. With these three principles, solar alignment, lunar tracking, and stellar calendars, ancient cultures had mastered the measurement of days, months, seasons, and years. Yet one final, breathtaking layer of precision remained, a system so complex it seems to defy the very tools they had at hand. The sheer scale of the challenge is almost incomprehensible from our modern vantage point. We are talking about civilizations that had not yet discovered the wheel for heavy transport, that shaped granite with stone hammers and sand, and that aligned monuments to celestial events with an accuracy rivaling modern lasers, all through oral tradition and naked eye observation. To move a single 80-ton stone block for the Great Pyramid or a sarsen for Stonehenge was a generational undertaking. It required not just brute force, but a symphony of coordinated intelligence. Thousands of individuals, from quarry workers to rope teams to surveyors, had to act in perfect concert, motivated by a shared vision that transcended any single lifetime. They were building a machine to converse with the cosmos, and every stone was a carefully chosen word. The first step was always finding true north and the cardinal directions. Without a magnetic compass, they turned to the stars themselves. By observing the circular path of a northern star around the celestial pole, or by marking the shadow of a vertical pole at the exact midpoint between the sunrise and sunset points on an equinox, they could establish an impeccable east-west line. From this baseline, everything else could be built. Over long distances, they used simple yet brilliant tools. A water level, just a trough of still water, provided a perfectly horizontal reference on any terrain, allowing them to create flat foundations across rolling hills. To lay out precise right angles for corners, they employed the timeless principle of rope geometry, creating a 3-4-5 triangle, a method known for millennia. Sighting poles placed miles apart could be aligned with the rising of a key star, creating a permanent survey line etched into the landscape itself. Modern engineers who study these sites often express profound respect for this pragmatic genius. They point out how builders frequently incorporated natural features as permanent back sites. A distant, unmistakable mountain peak, a solitary tree on a ridge, or a natural notch in the cliffs became part of the observatory's permanent architecture. This wasn't just practical, it was poetic, weaving the sacred landscape directly into the function of the monument. The social organization behind such projects hints at a society unified by a celestial purpose. Feeding, housing, and motivating a workforce of thousands for decades required a centralized authority, but also a deeply held communal belief. The drive to precisely measure time, to predict the floods and the seasons, was a goal so vital it could mobilize entire cultures. It fused the practical need for agricultural survival with the spiritual need to understand humanity's place in the universe. This raises a hauntingly beautiful question. How do you transfer the precise angle of a solstice sunrise or the 18.6-year lunar cycle without a single written blueprint or textbook? The knowledge lived in chants, in stories, in the precise steps of a ritual dance performed at the foot of the stones. It was encoded in the very alignment of the temple doorway, a truth in stone that each new generation could see and verify for themselves. This was a living science passed from master to apprentice under the open sky, tested and confirmed with every passing year. This global convergence of mind, muscle, and celestial vision did not happen in just one isolated valley. From the deserts of the Americas to the islands of the Pacific, cultures separated by oceans independently arrived at the same stunning conclusions, building their own stone dialogues with the heavens. The first light of the summer solstice dawn in Salisbury Plain would have struck the heel stone long before it touched the ground. As the sun crested the horizon, its rays would have shot through a narrow gap, framed perfectly by the outer Sarsen circle, to penetrate the very center of the monument. For a brief, brilliant moment, the axis of the entire complex aligned with the axis of the sun, a feat of engineering that transformed Stonehenge from a ring of stones into a colossal Neolithic solar instrument. This was not a temple built in a single lifetime, but a project that evolved over 1,500 years, each generation adding to a vision that stretched far beyond their own understanding. The final form we see today, with its iconic lintel-topped sarsens and inner horseshoe of blue stones, represents the pinnacle of a prehistoric society's desire to capture celestial time in a circle of earth and rock. The primary alignment is stunning in its simplicity and power. If you stand at the center of the circle and look northeast through the great trilithon archways, your gaze is directed precisely toward the heel stone and the point on the horizon where the sun rises on the longest day of the year. Conversely, looking southwest through the circle frames the sunset on the winter solstice. This dual alignment for both the height of summer and the depth of winter suggests a profound understanding of the solar cycle as a whole, a recognition of light and dark as two halves of a single, eternal rhythm. But the sophistication likely runs deeper. Some researchers propose that the 56 Aubrey holes, mysterious pits that circle just inside the earthwork bank, were not for burial but for calculation. By moving markers, perhaps stones or posts, from hole to hole at a set yearly rate, one could track the complex relationship between the solar year and the lunar month, effectively creating a rudimentary analog computer to predict lunar eclipses. This idea, while debated, illustrates the monument's potential as a dynamic tool, not just a static calendar. Its purpose was almost certainly multifaceted, a fusion of the practical and the profoundly sacred. It was a place of ceremony where communities gathered to witness the sun's promised return, reinforcing social bonds and shared beliefs under the most dramatic celestial spectacle imaginable. It was a calendar that anchored the agricultural year, telling people when to move their livestock or hold great gatherings. And for the learned few, it may have been an observatory and a calculator, a place where the slow dance of the sun, moon, and stars could be measured, predicted, and integrated into a coherent view of the cosmos. The sheer effort required transporting 80-ton sarcens from over 20 miles away and smaller bluestones from the mystical Preseli Hills in Wales, over 150 miles distant, speaks to a motivation that transcended mere utility. This was an act of world-building, of imposing a human-made order upon the landscape that mirrored the perceived order of the heavens. It stands as a testament to a localized, yet astronomically advanced culture that sought not just to observe the sky, but to formally invite its cycles into the heart of their community. This drive to architecturally harmonize with the cosmos was not unique to the green hills of England. An equally ambitious and precise conversation with the sun was being engineered at nearly the same time in the dense jungles of Central America. While Stonehenge harnessed the solstice sun, a different kind of light show was engineered half a world away. On the spring equinox at Chichen Itza, as the sun begins its descent, a transformation overtakes the Great Pyramid known as El Castillo. The play of light and shadow against the northwestern staircase creates the undulating body of a serpent, a slithering shadow that connects the carved stone head of the feathered god Kukulkan at the base to the temple at the summit. For a brief, breathtaking moment, the pyramid becomes a cosmic conduit, a stone vessel for divine descent. This was no happy accident of architecture, but the pinnacle of Maya astronomical genius, a civilization that didn't just track time, they wove it into the very fabric of their gods and cities. The pyramid itself is a physical calendar. Its 4 stairways each have 91 steps, which, added to the shared platform at the top, totals 365, the number of days in the solar hub year. The 9 terraced levels are divided by the stairways, mirroring the 18 months of 20 days each in that same calendar. Every dimension, every angle, was a deliberate encoding of cosmic mathematics. But the Maya vision of time was far more intricate than a simple solar count. They operated multiple, interlocking calendars simultaneously. Alongside the 365-day hub for civil and agricultural life, they used the sacred 260-day Tzolk'in, a cycle woven from the numbers 13 and 20 that governed ritual and prophecy. The convergence of these 2 cycles, creating a larger calendar round of 52 years, was a moment of profound renewal and potential danger in their cosmology. To track the complex movements that fed into these systems, they built one of the most distinctive ancient observatories in the world, El Caracol, named for its spiral interior staircase. Its narrow, angled sightlines, like slots in a giant stone telescope, were precisely aligned to the extreme rising and setting points of Venus. The Maya saw Venus not as a planet, but as a warlike deity whose movements dictated the timing of conflict and ceremony. Epigraphers, scholars who decode ancient writing, have found that Maya scribes recorded these celestial events with meticulous detail in their hieroglyphic texts, noting the positions of Venus, Mars, and lunar eclipses with dates that correspond perfectly with modern astronomical retrocalculations. This reveals a society where priest astronomers were among the most powerful figures, their ability to predict an eclipse or the heliacal rising of Venus serving as direct proof of their communion with the divine machinery of the universe. For the Maya, time itself was a sacred, cyclical force, deified and worshipped. Their observatories were not passive viewing platforms but active bridges, places where the human and divine realms could communicate through the silent, predictable language of the stars. This profound belief that measuring celestial time was a form of participating in a divine order was a thread that connected cultures across the globe, from the jungles of the Yucatan to the high deserts of another continent. High in the Andes, a solitary granite pillar rises from the heart of Machu Picchu, its angles carved to mirror the surrounding peaks. This is the Intihuatana, the hitching post of the sun. On the solstices, Incan priests would have performed ceremonies here, a symbolic act of tying the sun to the earth to prevent its escape into the eternal night. Their entire empire was built upon this sacred bargain with the cosmos, a belief that the sun, in Thai, was a living deity whose favor was essential for survival. Chroniclers of the early colonial period recorded a profound Inca fear that the sun, if not properly honored and anchored through ritual, might simply fail to return, plunging their world into cold and famine. This spiritual urgency drove them to achieve a level of astronomical precision that was woven directly into the stones of their cities. Machu Picchu itself is a masterclass in celestial engineering. The city was not just built on the mountain, it was designed in conversation with it. Specific windows in the Temple of the Sun frame the sunrise on the June solstice, casting a blade of light onto a ceremonial stone inside. The Torian, a semicircular temple, features a carefully carved altar aligned with the December solstice sunrise and the rising of the Pleiades star cluster, which marked the start of the planting season. Even natural rock outcrops were sculpted into altars and shadow-casting gnomons, turning the entire landscape into a functional observatory. Their calendar was a complex, living system that harmonized solar and lunar cycles to govern every aspect of life. The 12-month solar calendar, tied to the sun's journey, organized the massive agricultural projects that fed millions across the empire. The lunar calendar, meanwhile, scheduled the intricate web of religious festivals dedicated to various deities. By observing the sun's zenith passage the day it cast no shadow at noon, they could pinpoint their location in the mountains and calibrate their seasonal predictions with stunning accuracy. This knowledge was power, literally. The Sapa Inca, the emperor, claimed direct descent from the sun god, and his priest astronomers were among the most influential figures in the realm. Their ability to predict solstices and equinoxes, to announce the correct time for planting potatoes or maize, was not just science, it was a demonstration of divine mandate. It justified imperial control over a vast and rugged territory, uniting disparate peoples under a shared cosmic schedule. The precision of their timekeeping was a direct function of spiritual survival and political authority, a way of taming the chaotic forces of nature through understanding. This intimate, mountain-top dialogue with the sun presents a stark contrast to the methods developed in a very different environment, where the challenge was not anchoring a god, but finding order in an endless, empty sky. Deep within the heart of a grassy Irish mound, a stone passage lies in absolute darkness for 364 days. But on the dawn of the winter solstice, a miracle of stone and light occurs. As the sun crests the horizon, a single, narrow beam of light enters through a specially constructed opening above the entrance, known as the roof box. It travels over 60 feet down the long, narrow passageway, finally flooding the central chamber with a radiant, golden light for precisely 17 minutes before retreating. This event at Newgrange is not folklore. It is a 5,000-year-old architectural fact, a Neolithic masterpiece of solar alignment that predates Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids of Giza by centuries. The precision involved is staggering. The roof box aperture is not a simple hole, but a carefully engineered slit, lined with stone slabs that frame the rising sun like the sights of a rifle. The entire passage is angled with exacting purpose, so that only for a few days on either side of the solstice does this sliver of sunlight reach the chamber's deepest recess. This was not a tomb designed solely for the departed, but a machine built for the living to witness a cosmic promise. Archaeologists and historians widely interpret this profound alignment as a symbol of rebirth. The winter solstice marks the sun's lowest point, the longest night, a time of literal and metaphorical darkness. By capturing the sun's first returning light and channeling it into a chamber associated with ancestors, the builders created a powerful metaphor. They linked the cyclical rebirth of the sun with the human hope for life beyond physical existence, for regeneration and continuity. The light penetrating the darkness of the tomb was a dramatic, annual affirmation that the cycle would continue, that life, in some form, would return. This transforms Newgrange from a mere calendar into a sacred instrument of spiritual meaning. What does it mean to invest such immense communal effort, to move thousands of tons of earth and stone, not just to mark a date, but to stage a divine light show for the dead and the living? It reveals that for these ancient people, measuring time was never a cold, mathematical exercise. It was a deeply symbolic act, a way of participating in the fundamental rhythms of life, death, and renewal. The 17 minutes of light were a covenant written in sunlight, a reassurance that even in the deepest dark, the light would find its way back. This fusion of precise astronomy with profound spirituality, of using monumental architecture to capture a moment of transcendent meaning, would find a powerful echo in another, very different landscape, where the sun's path was tracked not through a stone roof box, but across vast, open desert. Far from the misty hills of Ireland, another stone circle waited beneath a different sky. The Sahara Desert today is a sea of sand and rock, a place of extreme heat and vast emptiness. But 7,000 years ago, the landscape of Nebra Playa in southern Egypt looked utterly different. It was a green savanna dotted with acacia trees and seasonal lakes, home to herds of cattle and the communities that followed them. In this lush, vanished world, a group of nomadic herders performed an act of genius that would echo through millennia. They arranged a series of massive stones into alignments and circles, creating what many archaeologists now consider the oldest known astronomical observatory on Earth, predating Stonehenge by over 2,000 years. These stones are not towering monoliths, but they are placed with deliberate, breathtaking intent. The central structure is a stone circle, roughly 12 feet across, with a set of taller slabs at its center. Radiating out from this hub are lines of megaliths, some stretching for hundreds of yards across the flat desert floor. For decades, their purpose was a mystery, until researchers began mapping their positions against the ancient horizon. They discovered that several key alignments point precisely to where the sun would have risen on the summer solstice 7 millennia ago. Other lines target the rising points of important stars, including Sirius and the 3 stars of Orion's belt. This was no abstract exercise in geometry. For the people of Nebra Playa, astronomy was a direct line to survival. The summer solstice sunrise served as their most critical annual alarm clock. Its appearance heralded the imminent arrival of the African monsoon rains, which would fill the playa or basin with life-giving water. The subsequent heliacal rising of Sirius, visible just before dawn, would have confirmed the timing, acting as a celestial second opinion. This knowledge allowed these early pastoralists to coordinate their migrations with stunning precision. They could move their precious cattle to the higher ground before the floods came, then return to the fertile basins as the waters receded, ensuring their herds thrived in a challenging, cyclical environment. The sophistication of the site suggests this was more than a practical calendar. It was a ceremonial center, a place where the community gathered to mark these pivotal cosmic events with ritual. Archaeologists have found evidence of cattle burials near the stones, suggesting these animals, essential to their survival, were part of their spiritual cosmology. By aligning stones to the solstice sun and the key stars, they were building a permanent covenant with the forces that governed their world, literally setting their truths in stone so they could be witnessed by every generation. This practice represents a foundational moment in human history, where systematic observation of the heavens became embedded in cultural ritual. Many scholars see a direct lineage from the star watchers of Nabta to the later astronomers of pharaonic Egypt. The emphasis on Sirius, which would become the goddess Sopdet and signal the Nile flood, is a profound conceptual link. The very idea of creating a monumental, landscape-scale calendar to predict life-giving water appears here first, in the desert, as a blueprint that would be refined along the Nile. It underscores a powerful, universal truth that from the green Sahara to the river valleys, the human impulse to read the sky was born from a need to navigate an unpredictable world, to find order in the chaos of weather and seasons. This drive to map the heavens onto the earth did not stop at circles of stone. It evolved into even more ambitious projects that sought to chart the cosmos across entire territories. At an elevation of almost 10,000 feet, the wind never truly stops whispering across the Medicine Wheel Plateau. Here, on a remote, treeless ridge in the Big Horn Mountains of Wyoming, a different kind of celestial map is laid out not in towering stone, but in a delicate pattern of white limestone against the earth. The Big Horn Medicine Wheel is a perfect circle, roughly 80 feet across, with 28 spokes radiating from a central cairn to an outer rim. At key points around the circle, 6 more stone cairns stand like silent sentinels. To the untrained eye, it is a beautiful, mysterious arrangement, but to the Plains tribes, including the Crow, Shoshone, and Arapaho peoples, this was a sophisticated observatory and a sacred site, a star map written on the ground. The alignments are precise and intentional. One key cairn points directly to the horizon where the sun rises on the summer solstice. Others are aligned to the Heliacal risings, the first dawn appearances of brilliant stars like Aldebaran in Taurus, Rigel in Orion, and Sirius. These celestial events were not abstract dates. They were a practical, spiritual calendar that dictated the rhythm of life on the plains. The rising of Aldebaran in late spring, for instance, signaled the time when the snows would melt in the high passes, indicating it was safe to move the community to summer hunting grounds. The appearance of Rigel and Sirius later in the season helped mark the timing for the great buffalo hunts and the gatherings of different bands for ceremonies like the Sun Dance. This was timekeeping woven directly into survival, where an observation of a star's return could mean the difference between plenty and hardship for the coming year. The wheel was far more than a utilitarian tool, however. Oral traditions speak of it as a place of vision and profound connection. Individuals would journey to the site for prayer, fasting, and seeking guidance, believing the high, open place brought them closer to the spirits and the star people. The 28 spokes, a number echoed in the days of a lunar month and in the ribs of the buffalo, suggest a cosmology that saw the cycles of the moon, the patterns of the stars, and the bounty of the earth as interconnected parts of a single, sacred whole. Here, there was no separation between the observatory and the temple, between the astronomer and the holy person, between measuring time and experiencing the divine. The Big Horn Medicine Wheel stands as a powerful reminder that the drive to understand the cosmos manifested in forms beyond grand architecture. It required no quarried stone or slave labor, only a deep, generations-long knowledge of the land and the sky, and the quiet act of placing one stone upon another to create a dialogue with eternity. This elegant, integrated view of the universe, where every star had a purpose and every season a ceremony, represents a complete philosophy of time, one that modern society is only beginning to appreciate. Lie flat on your back and look toward the edge of the world. The horizon is not just a boundary, it is the oldest and most universal scientific instrument humanity ever possessed. This simple line where the Earth meets the sky became a giant natural protractor, a reference grid against which every movement of the sun, moon, and stars could be measured with astonishing clarity. This practice, known as horizon astronomy, did not require towering monuments or complex machinery. It demanded only a fixed point of observation, a deep, intimate knowledge of the local landscape, and generations of patient watching. The technique was elegantly straightforward. Ancient observers would identify specific, unmistakable features on their horizon. A distinct V-shaped notch between two hills, the silhouette of a lone, gnarled tree on a ridge, or a specially placed standing stone they erected themselves. These became their permanent sighting markers. Day after day, year after year, they would note where the sun rose in relation to these markers. They watched as the sunrise point crept northward along the horizon as summer approached, paused at its farthest northern reach on the solstice, and then began its slow retreat southward toward winter. By memorizing which marker corresponded to which day, they could build a perfectly accurate solar calendar etched not on parchment, but onto the land itself. The entire rhythm of the year, the timing of seasons, rains, and migrations, was readable in the sun's silent slide along the skyline. One of the most beautiful and precise examples of this principle is found at Fajoda Butte in Choco Canyon. High on a cliff face, 3 large stone slabs lean against the rock, creating narrow slits. Behind them, ancient artists carved spiral petroglyphs into the cliff. For most of the year, these spirals sit in shadow, but on the summer solstice, a dagger of sunlight slices perfectly through the center of the largest spiral. On the winter solstice, 2 daggers of light bracket the same spiral, and during the equinoxes, a single blade of light cuts directly through its center. This is not a monument you walk through. It is a solar calendar you witness from a distance, a collaboration between human artistry, natural rock formation, and celestial geometry. The genius of horizon astronomy lies in its minimalist efficiency. It turns the entire world into an observatory. It required no moving parts, no construction beyond perhaps a single marker stone, and it was perfectly adapted to its specific location. This method fostered a profound, sacred connection to place. Knowing that the sun would rise over a particular mountain peak on the morning of the harvest festival was not just a date, it was a covenant between the people and their homeland. The accuracy of this system relied entirely on that deep familiarity, a knowledge passed down through stories and songs, ensuring that each generation could read the sky's message written on the familiar silhouette of their own horizon. This fundamental skill of reading the land and sky was the first step in a much grander architectural ambition, one that would eventually lead to the construction of structures designed not just to mark the sun's path, but to amplify its light into moments of breathtaking theater. A single stick planted upright in the earth becomes humanity's first clock, its shadow stretching long in the morning, shrinking to a mere pool at noon, and lengthening again toward evening, paints a silent, daily story of the sun's journey. This simple observation of a moving shadow, the foundation of mnemonics, is arguably one of the most transformative scientific insights in history. It revealed that time was not just an abstract concept, but something that could be measured, divided, and predicted with nothing more than light, a shadow-casting object called a gnomon, and a marked surface. From this basic principle, cultures across the globe engineered increasingly sophisticated instruments to capture the day's flow. The earliest sundials were often just a horizontal plate with markings and a slanted gnomon. But the true challenge was accounting for the sun's changing path through the seasons. A shadow in summer, when the sun is high, moves differently than a shadow in winter, when the sun is low on the horizon. To create a truly accurate sundial that told equal hours year-round, ancient astronomers had to understand their place on the planet. They learned to tilt the gnomon's angle to match their local latitude, pointing it directly at the celestial North Pole. This created the equatorial sundial, where the shadow falls on a plane parallel to the Earth's equator, marking time with beautiful symmetry. The Romans perfected a portable version called the hemispherium, a hollowed-out hemisphere with a central gnomon whose shadow moved across curved hour lines inscribed inside the bowl. In China, engineers developed elaborate sundials that could account for the solar terms of their lunisolar calendar, some even using multiple gnomons or specially shaped bars to cast clearer shadow edges. But the use of shadows went far beyond telling the hour of day. In ancient Egypt, a tool called the merkit, meaning instrument of knowing, was used by temple astronomers. It consisted of a horizontal bar with a plumb line and a central sighting slot. By aligning the merkit with a pole star at night, they could establish a true north-south meridian line with impeccable accuracy. This sacred alignment was then used to orient pyramids and temples. By day, the same tool used with a vertical gnomon could mark noon when the sun crossed that meridian, its shadow disappearing momentarily. This dual use for stars and sun highlights a seamless integration of nightly and daily timekeeping. Think about the profound intimacy of this system. For ordinary people, the sundial in the town square or the shadow cast by a familiar monument provided a communal, tangible rhythm to the day. The slow, inevitable creep of darkness was not a digital number changing, but a physical presence you could see and feel. This daily, silent demonstration of cosmic order made the principles of celestial mechanics personal, a constant reminder that they lived within a larger, predictable system. That foundational understanding of angles, shadows, and local position was the essential training ground, the practical knowledge that ultimately enabled the grand architectural alignments of solstice sunrises and stellar risings. Mastering the shadow on a small scale taught them how to work with light on a monumental one. That solitary mark on a bone or tablet was a revolution in thought. It represented the moment humanity stopped merely reacting to the sky cycles and began to formally record them to create a system. The translation of observed celestial motion into a written, abstract calendar was one of our species' greatest intellectual leaps. It meant time could now be planned, predicted, and owned. The earliest calendars were often tied directly to an undeniable, visible rhythm, the lunar month. Watching the moon wax and wane through its 29.5-day cycle provided a natural, portable unit of time. Many ancient societies, from the Babylonians to the early Hebrews, used a strictly lunar calendar. But a problem quickly emerged, a fundamental mismatch that challenged sky watchers for millennia. 12 of these lunar months only add up to about 354 days, falling short of the true solar year by roughly 11 days. If you follow a pure lunar calendar, your seasons begin to drift, your spring planting festival slowly sliding into summer, then fall, over the course of a few decades. To keep the lunar months in sync with the solar seasons, cultures had to invent a solution, the intercalary month. This was a 13th month added every 2 or 3 years, a periodic correction to reset the calendar. The Babylonian lunisolar calendar mastered this intricate dance, with priest astronomers in observatories like the famed ziggurat of Babylon issuing decrees to insert an extra month based on their meticulous star and moon observations. This system wove together the sacred rhythm of the moon with the practical necessities of the solar year, governing everything from religious festivals to the repayment of debts. Meanwhile, along the Nile, a different approach was taking shape. The Egyptians, whose lives were ruled by the sun and the star Sirius, developed one of history's first predominantly solar calendars. Their civil year was a clean, elegant 365 days, divided into 12 months of 30 days each, plus an extra 5 festival days at the end. They made no attempt to force it to match the moon's phases. While this was simpler, they were acutely aware of its slight inaccuracy, that missing quarter of a day each year. Over centuries, they saw their calendar slowly drift against the seasons and the heliacal rising of Sirius, but its administrative simplicity made it enduring. Historians of science point out that this Egyptian calendar was later adopted and refined by Julius Caesar, forming the backbone of the Julian calendar we used for centuries. Yet for sheer ambition in conceptualizing time, few systems rival the Maya-long count. While they used the solar hub and the sacred Tzolk'in for daily and ritual life, the long count was something else entirely, a linear count of days from a mythical starting point they placed in August of the year 3114 before Common Era. It was like a vast cosmic odometer tracking time in grand cycles of backtons, each about 394 years long. This allowed them to place any event, historical or prophetic, on an absolute timeline stretching thousands of years into the past and future. The societal impact of these formal calendars cannot be overstated. They were the operating system of civilization. A reliable calendar told farmers the exact window for sowing and reaping, maximizing the food supply. It told the state when taxes were due, creating a predictable economy. It told priests when to perform the rituals believed to maintain cosmic order, unifying society under a shared spiritual schedule. Time, once a mysterious force governed by gods, became a managed public resource. This bureaucratization of the heavens created a new pressure, a demand for ever greater precision in the original astronomical observations. If the entire machinery of state and faith now depended on a calendar, then the alignments of the temples and the sightings of the stars had to be flawless. The abstract system fed back into the physical science, driving innovation in the very tools used to watch the sky. Beneath the clear Aegean waters, a diver's hand brushed against a lump of corroded bronze and wood. It was the year 1900, and a sponge harvesting crew had stumbled upon an ancient Roman shipwreck off the coast of a small Greek island called Antikythera. Among the statues and pottery, this unassuming, crusted object seemed like just another piece of debris. Yet when it was finally cleaned and studied decades later, it would shatter our understanding of ancient technological capability. This was the Antikythera mechanism, a device so advanced for its time that it has been called the world's first analog computer. Created around the 2nd century before Common Era, it represents a breathtaking leap from static stone alignments to a portable, mechanical model of the cosmos you could hold in your hands. The mechanism was a complex clockwork of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, housed in a wooden case roughly the size of a shoebox. On its front and back were numerous dials with fine, Greek inscriptions. By turning a hand crank on the side, the entire system would whir to life. The gears would engage and pointers would sweep across the dials, predicting not just the positions of the sun and moon, but the movements of the 5 known planets, the phases of the moon, and even the timing of solar and lunar eclipses. It could model the irregular orbit of the moon, a subtlety known as lunar anomaly, using a brilliant pin and slot gear design that mimicked the moon's speeding up and slowing down in the sky. One of its most remarkable features was a small, revolving ball, painted half silver and half black, that would rotate to display the exact phase of the moon on any given date. This was not merely a calculator, it was a dynamic simulation, a miniature universe engineered from bronze. For over a century, the mechanism's true complexity remained locked inside its corroded layers. It was only with advanced imaging technology, like 3-dimensional X-ray computed tomography scans, that researchers could finally peer inside without destroying it. The scans revealed hidden gears and detailed instructional texts that had been invisible to the eye. Inscriptions explained which dial corresponded to which celestial body, and even included a calendar of upcoming athletic games like the Olympics. The scans confirmed the mechanism was a comprehensive astronomical teaching tool, a planetarium for the ancient world, likely used by philosophers, sailors, or wealthy patrons to demonstrate the harmony of the heavens as understood by Greek science. This single artifact forces a dramatic rethinking of classical antiquity. It proves that the ancient Greeks, drawing on centuries of Babylonian astronomical data and their own geometric genius, possessed a mechanical sophistication we never attributed to them. They had moved beyond observing and marking celestial cycles to building a physical machine that could replicate and predict them with stunning accuracy. The Antikythera mechanism stands as a lonely survivor, a glimpse into a lost tradition of high technology that may have spanned generations. Its very existence suggests that the pursuit of understanding time had evolved from monuments fixed to the earth to intricate models that could travel, be studied, and perhaps even be owned. It represents a pinnacle of ancient thought where the cosmos was not just a spectacle to be witnessed but a system to be engineered. The stone itself was only part of the equation. Its true power was unlocked by the community gathered around it, their voices rising in chant as the first sliver of solstice sun broke the horizon. For them, this precise astronomical moment was not a date on a calendar. It was a divine appointment, a fleeting window when the veil between the human and celestial realms grew thin. Measuring time with such astonishing accuracy was at its heart a sacred language, a way to speak directly to the gods who orchestrated the cosmos. The observatory was their temple, and the priest-astronomer was their translator, interpreting the silent movements of stars and planets as messages of favor or warning. In ancient Egypt, the entire layout of the Temple of Karnak was a terrestrial echo of the heavens. Its main axis aligned not just to the winter solstice sunrise, but its innermost sanctuaries were positioned so that the light of the star Sirius, the goddess Sopdet, could penetrate to the holiest shrine on the morning of its Heliacal rising. This was not architecture, it was a deliberate act of invitation, bringing the divine signal for the Nile's flood directly into the house of the god. The correct celestial event triggered specific rituals, offerings, and processions, all designed to thank the deity and ensure the cycle would repeat. It was a conversation with the sky speaking first through its predictable patterns, and humanity responding with gratitude and ceremony. At Stonehenge, while we may never know the exact chance, the alignment speaks volumes. To witness the sun's rebirth framed perfectly by the great trilithons after the longest night would have been an experience of collective awe and profound relief. For Druidic traditions and earlier Neolithic peoples, this was likely the climax of a night-long vigil, a moment where prayers for the sun's strength and the earth's fertility were believed to be most potent. The immense effort to build the monument, to haul those stones across miles, makes perfect sense when you see it not as a scientific project, but as an act of spiritual survival. They were building a conduit for divine grace. This worldview transforms every alignment from a feat of engineering into a gesture of devotion. The Maya watching Venus rise through the slot of El Caracol were not just tracking a planet, they were monitoring the mood of a warlike god, timing their ceremonies of diplomacy or conflict accordingly. The Inca priest at the Intihuatana, hitching the sun to the stone, was performing a crucial duty to prevent cosmic collapse. In these cultures, time was not a neutral resource to be spent or saved. It was the very rhythm of the divine will, a rhythm they had learned to hear and hum along with. What does it say about a society that invests generations of labor not for a palace or a fortress, but for a precise moment of connection with the sky? It suggests a priority so deep it shaped their entire concept of reality. Our modern view of time as a commodity, a digital number to be managed and optimized, stands in stark contrast. We have gained incredible efficiency, but perhaps we have lost the language that once heard the universe speaking in the silent turn of the stars. The genius of these observatories would have been meaningless without the living minds to interpret them. For millennia, the most sophisticated data on Earth was not stored on clay tablets or in stone libraries, but in the memories of chosen individuals, passed from mentor to student in a sacred chain of spoken wisdom. A young apprentice in Babylon or Copan might spend 20 years not just learning, but internalizing the precise rhythm of Venus, the formula for predicting an eclipse, or the correct chant to recite when the sun touched a specific notch on the horizon. This was knowledge felt in the bones, repeated until it became as instinctive as breathing. In a world without widespread literacy, the human voice and memory were the primary hard drives, and they were astonishingly reliable. Complex astronomical sequences were encoded into epic poems, rhythmic songs, and ritualized dances. These were not mere entertainment, they were sophisticated mnemonic devices. The rhythm of a drumbeat could mirror the 18.6-year lunar cycle. A series of names in a genealogy could encode the order of constellations, and the steps of a ceremonial dance might physically map the path of the sun across the seasons. Anthropologists who study oral traditions note that this method of embedding data in narrative and performance creates a deeply resilient form of storage. The information becomes inseparable from cultural identity, reinforced every time the story is told or the ceremony is performed at its correct celestial moment. A structured apprenticeship within elite classes ensured this fragile thread of knowledge never broke. In Babylonian scribble schools, students destined to become astronomer priests spent years copying and reciting astronomical omens and mathematical tables, their training a blend of rigorous observation and rote memorization. Among the Maya, the knowledge of the calendar and the movements of Venus was likely guarded by a small priestly lineage, fathers teaching sons in the secluded chambers of temple complexes, using the alignments of buildings like El Caracol as their living textbook. The master did not merely impart facts, they cultivated a way of seeing, teaching the apprentice to discern subtle patterns in the shimmer of a star's light or the exact hue of the dawn sky. This system demanded absolute fidelity, as a single error in the chant or a misremembered alignment could, over generations, throw the entire calendar into chaos. The stone circles and pyramid alignments served as the external, immutable check for this internalized knowledge. An elder could point to the heel stone at Stonehenge and say, "This is the solstice marker your great-grandfather's song describes." The monument verified the memory, and the memory gave meaning to the monument. It was a perfect, self-reinforcing system where culture and cosmos were in constant dialogue. This human chain, stretching unbroken for centuries, was the true engine of precision. While the stones marked the celestial events, it was the whispered knowledge of the keepers that gave those marks their power, turning silent architecture into a speaking oracle of time. A laser theodolite sweeps across a weathered stone, its invisible beam measuring angles to a fraction of a degree. In a nearby tent, an archaeologist compares this fresh data to a three-dimensional model of the site, its digital horizon line calibrated to a date 5,000 years in the past. This is not science fiction, but the daily work of archaeoastronomy, a field born from the simple, profound question, what did they truly know and how can we prove it? By fusing the meticulous digging of archaeology with the precise calculations of astronomy, and often the cultural insights of ethnography, this modern discipline seeks to reconstruct the celestial knowledge of ancient cultures with empirical rigor. It moves beyond speculation, treating each stone alignment as a hypothesis to be tested. The methodology is both high-tech and deeply thoughtful. First, researchers create an extremely accurate survey of a site, mapping every stone, notch, and horizon feature. Then, using specialized software, they can remove modern obstructions and reconstruct the exact appearance of the night sky at any point in the distant past, accounting for subtle shifts in the Earth's tilt over millennia. They run statistical analyses on the alignments, asking a critical question: are these stones pointing to significant celestial events more often than mere chance would allow? This statistical gatekeeping is central to the field's biggest debate: how to distinguish an intentional solar calendar from a random arrangement of rocks. A famous example of this scientific scrutiny is often called the Stonehenge controversy. For over a century, the solstice alignment of the monument was widely accepted. But in the 1960s, an astronomer named Gerald Hawkins used an early computer to analyze the site, proposing it had many more alignments to lunar and solar events, effectively labeling it a Neolithic computer. This sparked fierce debate. Traditional archaeologists argued it was primarily a ritual site, and that finding alignments was easy if you looked hard enough. The controversy forced both sides to refine their methods. Modern archaeoastronomers responded by developing much stricter statistical standards. They now ask, what is the probability that this many alignments would occur by accident? They also look for corroborating evidence in the archaeological record, like artifacts, settlement patterns, or ethnographic accounts from descendant cultures. This rigorous, interdisciplinary approach has largely validated the core solstitial alignment of Stonehenge, while applying healthy skepticism to more extravagant claims. The process reveals a beautiful symmetry, using 21st-century satellites and software to confirm the naked eye observations of Bronze Age sky watchers. Each validated alignment is a conversation across time, a moment where modern science nods in respect to an ancient genius who understood, without a single equation, that the cosmos ran like clockwork. This validation does not diminish the mystery, it deepens it. It shifts the question from "did they do this?" to a far more compelling "how and why did they achieve such perfection?" The idea that these monuments required otherworldly intervention is a profound disservice to the human mind. It suggests that our ancestors, with their deep knowledge of the land and sky, were somehow incapable of the very patience and ingenuity their own lives demanded every single day. The evidence for human creation is etched into the sites themselves, in the tool marks on stones, the quarry pits nearby, and the trial and error alignments found at older, simpler versions of these complexes. Building Stonehenge or the pyramids was not magic. It was a monumental exercise in applied physics, social organization, and generational will. The true wonder is not that aliens might have done it, but that human beings did. Consider the practical knowledge they demonstrably possessed. To move an 80-ton sarsen stone, they didn't need anti-gravity beams. They needed sledges, rollers, and a well-organized team pulling on ropes, a method demonstrated in modern experiments. To shape granite, they used harder stones like dolerite for pounding and sand for abrasion, techniques that leave distinct archaeological traces. The astronomical alignments were not divined in an instant, but discovered through centuries, perhaps millennia, of patient horizon watching, a skill any culture deeply tied to the seasons would naturally develop and refine. The leap from noticing the solstice sunrise to marking it with a stone is a human leap, one of memory, and the desire to make that memory permanent for the community. Scholarly debate, of course, continues, but it revolves around nuance, not fantasy. One compelling alternative theory is that many of these sites were never purely astronomical instruments or purely temples, but multifunctional centers where science, ceremony, and social power converged. A place like Stonehenge likely served as a calendar, a sacred burial ground for elite individuals, and a colossal gathering place for seasonal festivals that reinforced cultural unity across a wide region. The astronomical alignments gave these gatherings their timing and their divine legitimacy, but the human need for community and shared identity was the engine that powered the construction. The stones held multiple meanings simultaneously, their celestial precision making them more sacred, and their sacredness justifying the immense effort to make them precise. This invites a powerful exercise in critical thinking. When you encounter a dramatic claim about ancient history, ask yourself a simple question: what does the actual evidence support? Is there a simpler, more human explanation that accounts for all the facts? The story of ancient timekeeping is not diminished by removing extraterrestrial help, it is elevated. It becomes a story of profound collaboration, of thousands of ordinary people working toward an extraordinary goal they believed in, of keen observers deciphering the universe with nothing but their eyes and their intellect. Their legacy is not a mystery to be solved by outside forces, but a testament to the breathtaking capabilities of the human spirit when it is focused, patient, and in tune with the world around it. The real magic was in their unwavering belief that the cosmos spoke a language they could learn, and in their stubborn, beautiful determination to answer back in stone. The success of their harvest did not begin with a plow in the soil, but with a priest's eyes on a pre-dawn star. For ancient societies, the most critical application of celestial timekeeping was not philosophical, it was profoundly practical. It was the difference between a thriving community and a season of hardship. The entire rhythm of civilization was set by these astronomical signals, turning the chaotic uncertainty of nature into a schedule that could be trusted. When the Pleiades star cluster first appeared in the autumn sky over Greece, Hesiod wrote that it was time for the farmer to sharpen his sickle and begin the harvest. In Egypt, the Heliacal rising of Sirius did not just mark a new year, it triggered the mobilization of an entire society to prepare for the Nile's life-giving flood, directing labor to reinforce canals and ready the fields. This was timekeeping as a direct tool for survival, where a mistake in observation could mean a failed crop and the specter of want. The link was most explicit in the river-valley civilizations, where managing water was everything. In Mesopotamia, the fertile land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was a gift that came with a severe responsibility. The rivers did not flood with the gentle, predictable regularity of the Nile. Their surges were often violent and ill-timed. To master this environment, the Sumerians and later the Babylonians developed intricate irrigation systems that required precise, coordinated labor. Their lunar calendar, meticulously corrected with intercalary months, told them not only when to expect seasonal rains but, more importantly, when to clear canals, when to open and close water gates, and when the soil would be ready for sowing barley and dates. The calendar dictated the labor tax, the corvée, summoning farmers from their own plots to work on the communal waterways that sustained everyone. This collective effort, synchronized by the stars, turned a floodplain into a breadbasket, supporting dense urban populations in cities like Uruk and for the first time in human history. This agricultural predictability created a surplus, and that surplus changed everything. When a community produces more food than it needs for immediate survival, it creates new possibilities. Not everyone has to farm. Specialists can emerge, artisans can craft pottery and tools, scribes can record transactions, and priests can dedicate themselves fully to observing the heavens. Trade networks expand as surplus grain is exchanged for timber, stone, or precious metals from distant regions. With trade comes the need for standardized weights, measures, and, crucially, contracts with set dates for delivery or payment, all governed by the shared calendar. The Astronomical Observatory, in essence, funded the marketplace. The temple, which housed the calendar keepers, often also served as the central granary and economic hub, a physical symbol of how celestial order underpinned material wealth. This virtuous cycle of precise timekeeping, reliable agriculture, and social complexity is visible across the ancient world. In the Andes, the Incas' mastery of the solar cycle allowed them to cultivate a stunning variety of crops at different altitudes, from maize in the valleys to potatoes on the high slopes, feeding millions across a vast empire. Their calendar told them exactly when to plant each crop for maximum yield, a form of agricultural engineering made possible only by their celestial observations. The resulting surplus supported the armies, engineers, and administrators who built the road network and terraced cities that define their legacy. The stone circles and pyramid alignments were not vanity projects. They were the foundational infrastructure of civilization itself. They transformed human life from a precarious reaction to the environment into a planned partnership with it. By reading the sky, our ancestors didn't just tell time. They built the clockwork of society, where every reliable harvest ticked forward the progress of art, governance, and science. From the grassy plains of Britain to the jungles of the Yucatan, a common impulse rises from the earth in stone. Cultures that never knew of each other's existence, separated by oceans and millennia, all felt the same compelling need to build monuments in precise conversation with the heavens. This global pattern reveals a breathtaking truth about human nature, a universal response to the sky's majestic order. The similarities are too profound to ignore. The solstice alignment, that precise marking of the sun's farthest journey, appears again and again. We see it in the sun dagger at Fajoda, but in the American Southwest, in the heel stone at Stonehenge, and in the pyramid of El Castillo at Chichen Itza. Each culture independently identified these same celestial anchor points as critical moments to memorialize. The use of horizon markers, whether a distant mountain notch or a placed standing stone, was a global technique, a simple yet brilliant tool born from patient observation. Even the concept of a central, sacred space oriented to the cosmos, a temple that was also an observatory, emerged independently across continents. These parallels suggest something fundamental about the human mind when confronted with the cyclical drama of the sky. It seems we are hardwired to seek patterns, to mark significant moments, and to build structures that reflect our understanding of cosmic law. This was not a single idea spreading from one source, but a spontaneous flowering of the same intellectual seed in fertile ground across the world. Yet within this universal framework, the differences are equally illuminating, shaped entirely by local environment and belief. The ancient Egyptians, whose lifeblood was the Nile, focused their celestial devotion on the star Sirius. Its heliacal rising predicted the flood, so their mythology deified it as Sopdet, and their temple alignments invited its light into the innermost sanctuaries. For them, timekeeping was about water and renewal. Half a world away, the Maya, living under a dense jungle canopy, fixated on the planet Venus. Its cyclical appearances as the morning and evening star were woven into a complex mythology of war and rebirth, and their unique observatory, El Caracol, was engineered with narrow sightlines to track its extreme positions. Their time was about prophecy and the balance of divine forces. In China, imperial astronomers developed elaborate lunisolar calendars and built observatories to monitor the heavens for signs that impacted the emperor's mandate to rule, linking celestial events directly to political stability. Each culture looked at the same sky but asked different questions of it, and their stone answers reflected their deepest environmental needs and spiritual yearnings. This raises a classic historical puzzle, the debate between independent invention and cultural diffusion. Did the idea of building celestial observatories arise once and slowly spread across trade routes and migrating peoples? Or did it ignite separately in the minds of isolated cultures as a natural solution to a shared human problem? The evidence strongly favors independent invention for the core concepts. The sheer distances and timeframes involved, like the 5,000-year-old Nebra plier in Africa predating Britain's stone circles by millennia, make direct connection unlikely. The specific alignments are also tied to local horizons and stars important to that region's survival, not a borrowed template. However, scholars do note that within certain interconnected regions, like the Mediterranean or Mesoamerica, ideas about calendar systems and specific astronomical knowledge certainly traveled along trade networks, being refined and adapted by each new culture that received them. The Babylonian base 60 numerical system, for instance, influenced Greek astronomy, which later impacted the Roman world. This global perspective offers a beautiful duality. It underscores a shared human drive, a common cognitive toolkit that led us all to measure the cosmos. Yet it also celebrates our magnificent diversity, the unique cultural lenses through which we interpreted the celestial clockwork. Our ancestors were all reading the same book of the sky, but each wrote their own breathtaking commentary in the language of their land and gods. This legacy of stone and star poses a final, reflective question for us in the modern age, surrounded by digital clocks and artificial light. That same human drive for precision never faded. It simply found new tools. The shadow cast by an Egyptian obelisk 2,000 years ago and the vibration of a cesium atom in a modern laboratory are part of the same unbroken quest to measure existence. Our journey from stone circles to atomic clocks is not a story of replacement, but of refinement, each era building upon the celestial insights of the last. After mastering the grand cycles of the year, ancient innovators turned their attention to the smaller increments, the hours and minutes of a single day. The sundial was the first great leap, but its silence at night and under clouds demanded a solution. This led to the invention of clepsydry, or water clocks, which used the steady drip of water from one vessel to another to mark the passage of time, independent of sunlight. These were used in courtrooms to limit speeches and in temples to time night watches, bringing a new, fluid regularity to civic life. The principle was simple: a constant, measurable flow, whether of water, sand in an hourglass, or later, the slow burn of a marked candle. These devices represented a crucial conceptual shift, from observing external celestial events to creating an internal, portable process that mimicked time's passage. This ingenuity eventually converged with the mechanical genius of the medieval world. The great weight-driven clocks that began to appear in European cathedral towers in the 13th century were more than timekeepers. They were microcosms of the universe. Their geared mechanisms mirrored the celestial spheres, with faces that showed the phases of the moon and the movement of planets. The clock tower itself became the new communal sundial, its chimes regulating the daily life of the town, synchronizing labor, prayer, and market hours with a new mechanical authority. Yet even these marvels were imperfect, losing or gaining significant minutes each day. The next breakthrough was born from the need to navigate the open ocean, where knowing the exact time meant knowing your longitude and avoiding disaster. The pursuit of a seaworthy, precise clock in the 17th and 18th centuries drove a technological revolution, leading to the exquisite balance of the marine chronometer. This was precision for survival and empire, a direct descendant of the ancient need to predict the seasons for harvest. Our modern global time system, anchored by Greenwich Mean Time and later Coordinated Universal Time, is the ultimate expression of this ancient need for a shared reference. It is a global agreement on where the prime meridian lies, creating a standardized framework for the entire planet, much like how a local horizon once provided a shared reference for a single community. The atomic clock, which defines the second not by the sun's movement but by 9,192,631,770 vibrations of a cesium atom, represents the final abstraction. We have moved from tracking the sun's journey across the sky to measuring the immutable quantum heartbeat of matter itself. Yet this pinnacle of precision is still calibrated against the astronomical reality it sought to escape, with leap seconds occasionally added to keep atomic time in sync with the Earth's slightly irregular rotation. Even our calendar is a living artifact of this long conversation. The Julian calendar, instituted by Caesar with advice from an Alexandrian astronomer, was a reform of the old Roman system based on a solar year of 365 and a quarter days. Its error, that slight overestimation, accumulated over centuries until the Gregorian reform in 1582, which fine-tuned the leap year rule to what we use today. Every time we write a date, we are using a system directly descended from ancient solar observations and papal decrees meant to keep Easter aligned with the spring equinox. This unbroken thread from standing stone to atomic lattice tells a profound story. It is not merely a chronicle of technological progress, but a testament to a persistent human desire to find order, to synchronize our lives with a rhythm greater than ourselves, whether that rhythm is written in sunlight, flowing water, ticking gears, or vibrating atoms. The stonemasons who aligned a monument to catch the solstice sunrise and the physicists who isolate atoms in a vacuum are kin, separated by millennia but united by the same fundamental question: how do we measure our place in the flow of eternity? Their legacy is not locked in the past. It ticks quietly in every digital clock and is encoded in every global positioning satellite signal, a continuous dialogue between human curiosity and the profound regularity of the universe. The perfect alignment of stones would have been useless under a perpetually cloudy sky. This simple, practical truth guided the hand of every ancient astronomer, for their science was utterly dependent on the clarity of the atmosphere above them. The selection of an observatory site was a meticulous negotiation with the environment, a search for a window to the cosmos that remained reliably open. Builders sought high ground not just for prominence, but to rise above the dust and haze of the valley floor, to find air that was still and transparent. Arid regions with their low humidity and infrequent cloud cover became natural laboratories for the stars. The deserts of Egypt, the high plateaus of the Andes, and the plains of the American Southwest offered the consistent visibility needed for generations of precise observation. A stable, unobstructed horizon was equally critical. They needed a clean, distant skyline against which the subtle creep of a sunrise point could be measured year after year. A jagged, irregular horizon with many peaks could create confusion, but a single, distinct notch between two hills or a lone, silhouetted rock formation provided an unmistakable reference point. This is why so many sites feel deliberately placed, perched on ridges or in basins that frame the horizon like a natural picture frame. The environment was their silent partner in precision. Seasonal weather patterns were also woven into the astronomical calendar itself. The very act of observing certain stars was timed to avoid the rainy or cloudy seasons that would obscure the view. In some cultures, the disappearance of a key star for part of the year was not a problem, but a signal. Its return after a period of invisibility marking the start of a new season. Their practice was a dynamic conversation with the local climate, not a fight against it. This delicate balance, however, meant that long-term climatic shifts could unravel centuries of work. The story of Nabta Playa is a poignant example. For generations, it was a perfect location, a green savanna with seasonal lakes and crystal-clear night skies. But as the climate changed, as the Sahara began its relentless expansion, the rains failed and the lakes dried up. The very environmental stability that made it an ideal observatory vanished. The people were forced to migrate, likely carrying their celestial knowledge with them toward the Nile Valley, leaving their stone circles to be buried by the encroaching desert sands. Their abandoned site stands as a powerful reminder that these monuments were not isolated from the natural world, but deeply embedded within it. Their genius lay not only in aligning stones to the sky, but in first finding the perfect place on Earth from which to watch. This strategic placement, this marriage of astronomical need and environmental reality, was the unseen foundation upon which all their precise measurements were built. It reveals a holistic understanding that true accuracy began long before the first stone was set, in the patient, generations-long study of wind, weather, and light. The silent stones held their secrets for everyone who knew how to listen. Our modern imagination often paints the ancient astronomer as a stern, bearded priest or a solitary sage, a figure almost exclusively male. Yet the evidence whispering from the archaeological record tells a more nuanced and inclusive story, one where women were not merely bystanders to celestial discovery, but active participants and powerful custodians of time. To assume this profound knowledge was a male-only domain is to overlook half of the human experience gazing up at the stars. In the very cradle of civilization, we find a name that echoes through history, Enheduanna. Living in the city of around 2300 before Common Era, she was the daughter of the great Akkadian king Sargon, and she held the immensely powerful position of high priestess of the moon god Nanna. Her surviving hymns, some of the oldest signed literature in the world, are not just poetry, they are dense with celestial imagery and ritual timing, reflecting her deep involvement in the lunar calendar that governed temple life. As the chief administrator of the moon god's temple, her duties would have inherently included interpreting the phases of the moon for religious festivals and civic planning. Enheduanna was likely both a spiritual leader and a practicing astronomer, her authority woven from divine connection and celestial precision. This pattern of women in sacred, knowledge-holding roles extends far beyond written records into the deeper past. In Neolithic and early Bronze Age societies across Europe, burials provide silent but powerful testimony. Archaeologists have uncovered graves of women interred with distinctive artifacts that hint at a connection to sky lore. These include polished stone mace heads or ceremonial batons, finely crafted bone pins that may have been used for tallying counts, and curious, cup-marked stones whose patterns some researchers theorize could represent star clusters or lunar cycles. One such burial at a site in modern-day Germany contained a woman laid to rest with a rich array of goods, including a distinctive diadem. Analysis suggests the patterns on this headpiece may correlate with astronomical cycles, leading some scholars to propose she was a revered wise woman or a shamanic figure whose community looked to her to read the signs in the heavens. These individuals were likely the original timekeepers, the ones who watched the moon's swelling light to mark the community's rituals, and who interpreted the appearance of certain stars as signals for migration or harvest. Their knowledge was experiential, passed down through generations of women who managed the intimate cycles of life, birth, and the seasons, all of which are deeply connected to lunar and solar rhythms. This perspective fundamentally broadens our understanding of how celestial science was practiced. It suggests that ancient astronomy was not confined to monolithic temples or formal schools, but was also a distributed, community-based knowledge system. The village elder who knew when to plant by the Pleiades, the midwife who understood the connection between lunar cycles and fertility, the storyteller who wove the constellations into myths for children, all were part of this living network of timekeeping. They were the keepers of the oral almanac, the human memory that gave context to the stone alignments. Recognizing this diversity adds a rich, essential social layer to the narrative of ancient achievement. It moves us from a story of lone geniuses building monuments to one of whole communities, men and women, collaborating in a sacred dialogue with the cosmos. The precision they achieved was not the product of a single gender or class, but a collective human endeavor to find meaning and order in the turning sky. This inclusive view makes their legacy not only more accurate but profoundly more human, reminding us that the quest to understand our place in time has always been a shared journey. Even with all we have uncovered, a profound silence still hangs over many of these stones. For every alignment we can confidently explain, another presents a riddle that defies our modern categories. Was the central chamber at Newgrange solely a tomb illuminated by the solstice sun, or was it also a ceremonial space for the living to undergo a symbolic rebirth in that golden light? Did the Aubrey holes at Stonehenge function as a lunar eclipse predictor, or did they serve a purpose we have not yet conceived? The exact calibration methods, the day-to-day logs of observation, the specific chants and rituals that gave these measurements their meaning, these are the human details often lost to time. Our interpretations are educated reconstructions, frameworks we build around the enduring stones, and sometimes new evidence forces us to revise the entire blueprint. This is not a failure of understanding, but the very essence of historical discovery, a reminder that the past is not a puzzle to be solved once, but a conversation that continues. The field is vibrantly alive today, driven by technologies that would seem like magic to the original builders. Light detection and ranging, or LiDAR, is a revolutionary tool that uses laser pulses from aircraft to digitally strip away dense jungle canopy, revealing the true shape of the land beneath. In the forests of Guatemala and Belize, this technology has unveiled vast, hidden networks of Maya roadways, reservoirs, and yes, potential astronomical platforms previously swallowed by vegetation. Entire settlements and ceremonial complexes are coming to light, suggesting their celestial infrastructure was even more extensive and integrated into daily life than we knew. Each new scan is like gaining a new lens, bringing a blurry picture into startling focus. On the ground, archaeologists are using ground-penetrating radar to map subterranean features without lifting a single trowel, and isotopic analysis of soil and bones is telling us about the diets and migrations of the people who built these sites. We are slowly moving from studying the monuments in isolation to understanding the lives of the communities that sustained them. Perhaps the most haunting questions are those about lost knowledge. Did the builders of the Big Horn medicine wheel possess a stellar lore so detailed that each of its 28 spokes held a specific story, a piece of wisdom now known only to the wind? Have we correctly translated the symbols on the Nebra sky disk, or are we missing a layer of meaning that connected it to specific harvest rites or ancestor veneration? There is a humility required here, an acknowledgement that our scientific, data-driven world, you may not fully capture the holistic, spiritual way these cultures experienced time. They saw no division between the calendar and the sacred, between the observatory and the temple. Every new discovery, whether a hidden alignment or a previously misunderstood artifact, does not just add a fact, it refines our appreciation. It deepens the mystery even as it solves a piece of it, showing us that the precision we admire was part of a far richer, more complex tapestry of human life. The study of ancient timekeeping is not a closed book, but an ongoing excavation of human ingenuity, where each layer of soil removed reveals not an end, but a new beginning for wonder. The stones themselves may be silent, but the story they tell is one of the loudest triumphs in human history. From the solstice sun piercing the heart of Newgrange to the intricate bronze gears of the Antikythera mechanism, we have traced a breathtaking lineage of curiosity. Our ancestors were not primitive stargazers, they were master astronomers, engineers of time who transformed the silent, majestic cycles of the cosmos into the very heartbeat of their world. They built calendars in stone and coded prophecies in bronze, all to harmonize human life with the universe's grand, predictable rhythm. This was precision born not from cold calculation, but from a deep, sacred need to plant, to harvest, to celebrate, and to survive. Their observatories were more than tools, they were bridges between the earth and the sky, between the practical and the divine. This legacy is far more than a historical footnote. It is a mirror held up to our own place in time. In an age of atomic clocks and digital seconds, we have gained unimaginable accuracy, yet we risk losing the connection that made such precision meaningful. We schedule our lives by glowing screens, often forgetting that the original clock still turns above us, in the patient dance of constellations and the slow sweep of the seasons. The story of ancient timekeeping is a powerful reminder of a fundamental human truth, our drive to find order, to seek meaning, and to leave a mark that says, "We were here and we understood." Let this exploration be an invitation. The next time you find yourself under a clear night sky, look up. See it not as a void, but as an ancient library, a celestial clock face, and a storybook written in light. Each star, each planet, carries the echoes of 1,000 generations who watched them with the same wonder, seeking answers to the same eternal questions. If this journey through the mysteries of measured time has captivated you, there are countless more enigmas waiting to be explored. Please subscribe to join us as we delve into other great puzzles of history. And we would love to hear from you. Which of these ancient observatories speaks to you most profoundly? Is it the stark beauty of Stonehenge, the mathematical wonder of the Antikythera device, or the sacred light of a hidden chamber? Share your thoughts in the comments below.